Hello and welcome to the Pranay Wankhede Show. This is episode 5, and today we have with us Mr. Varun Duggirala, popularly known as Varun Duggi. So, Varun is one of the leading voices in the advertising space, and he also founded a new age creative advertising agency called The Glitch in 2009. He is also running two podcasts, The Varun Duggi Show and Advertising is Dead. Learning is an integral part of our life, and to productively learn something, we need to know some of the proven hacks that are already there. Listen to this episode where I'm diving in a deep conversation with Varun on learning, productivity, self discovery, and personal development. Enjoy the show. So, welcome to the Pranay Wankhede Show, Varun, and it's a pleasure to have you on the Pranay Wankhede Show. I've been following you for quite a long time, and it seems amazing to watch your content, read your content, and listen to your podcast and all these things. So, hi, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, and I'm glad I covered read, watch, and listen all ends of it, which is basically I think what everyone's trying to cover. But I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So before jumping on to the questions that I want to ask, so can you please tell to the listeners about what all the work you're doing and what are all the things you are involved in? So people would be more curious about these things. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give a short Cliff Notes version of my background. Small town boy, did my engineering, was terrible at engineering. Somehow landed up studying media, mass media, and filmmaking. Started off my career in the audiovisual space, working for MTV and Channel. We produced a lot of reality TV, Bollywood content, and all that stuff for them. 2009 started off a company called The Glitch. At that point of time, we started off as a digital production house for brands for the web in
Okay.
2009. Over and now we're one of the largest creative agencies in the country. We were
Okay.
acquired in 2017, and I oversee the production part of the business. On the creator side, so 2018, I started hosting a podcast called Advertising is Dead. The idea
Okay.
was to say that there is so many changes happening in this entire space of advertising, media, marketing. Let's talk about the changes there, and that was literally the idea. Because I come from an unconventional background, I don't have advertising experience. My company, which is a production unit, became an agency over time. So I've had a very different perspective on the industry. So that's why the podcast started. Now we're about close to 150 episodes. We don't just talk about media marketing and advertising. We talk about brands, we talk about startups, we talk about how business is evolving. So that's been one part of what I do. I also run another podcast called the Varun Duggi Show, where it's almost like an audio blog format. I'm a person who likes to learn about a lot of things,
Okay.
and the Varun Duggi Show has become a way for me to share the stuff which I learn. Everything from philosophy to personal development to trends that I'm seeing in the creator economy and like everything else. And once a month, I try to have a chat with somebody on the show as well, just trying to get perspective of
Okay.
somebody else about what inspires them, what motivates them. I write a newsletter called Unschooled, which goes out every week. That started off primarily because I'm working on a book which is due out next year.
Okay.
And the newsletter is a way for me to get validation that people will read the book, hopefully. So I do the newsletter, and I also create a bunch of stuff on YouTube, Instagram. I tweet a lot. So I put a lot of content out there, but if you have to put it all in a nutshell, I'm just sharing stuff I'm learning from. And that's really my core, is that I've always been a person who likes to share anything which I'm consuming as content or as learning. And now the internet has become a great funnel for me to kind of push it out there.
That's great. I'm really excited for your book, by though. So yeah, like I read your blogs and they are really valuable. So I'm definitely sure that your book will do magics
So if you
when it
read
will
my
release.
newsletter, you will find a lot of pieces which I've mentioned in my newsletter in the book, because I have sampled many ideas which are in the book on the newsletter, and I kind of look at the data, seeing which ones people resonated with, and some of those as concepts
Okay.
rather will appear throughout the book. So you will find some pieces about saying, okay, one second, he wrote about this, which is also why my newsletter is very short. I didn't want to write the entire book on the newsletter. So I'm like, when you have 200 words here and there, 300 words here and there, and then the book obviously is much larger. So My publisher will not turn to me and saying, 1 second, why did you put the book online?
Exactly. Yeah. So I see you creating a lot of content, and creating a lot of content needs a lot of consumption. Not just but for a creator, but for any individual. Like let's say if an individual working in the advertising space, they need to learn more about the advertising industry, or what is happening into their industry. So they need to read about. I, being a product manager, I need to learn a lot about products, on how product optimizations and roadmaps need to be designed. So learning is a job of which everyone needs specifically. So the question is how to build better habits of learning. I see you are learning a lot, and how to create habits of learning so you can consume daily, you can consume good content, and how to build a habit that helps you consume that content that you want.
So, one of the things which I feel confuses a lot of us when we're trying to learn, right, is the fact that we feel that we have to keep looking for newer places to learn from every time. Oftentimes you need to find a few sources and start off with that, almost create that, and I like to use the term funnel, because at some point you're refining it down, right? So find, let's say, 4 to 5 sources where you get information from, then kind of dig into where that source is finding their information from, so that evolves. There's this concept called the content family tree, which says that if you're learning from one person, whoever that person references are extensions of what you might want to learn from. So you keep doing that. So that's one thing which I do. And the second thing is, if you read or watch or listen to something once, doesn't mean you've learned from it. You need to reflect on it. You need to, many times, almost like how in school we always revise stuff, right? We don't revise enough of the learnings we have beyond that. So it could be that you kind of put it down on paper. Could be you use certain apps to kind of store them and kind of come back to them from time to time. So I use Pocket a lot to store articles and everything else which I'm reading. I use an app called Readwise, which is great if you read digitally. So because it takes all your highlights from your Kindle and syncs it up and sends you highlights, 10 things you highlighted every day, right? So use tools that are available to keep looking back at because we feel, okay, I finished this book, I'm done with it, I move ahead to something else, right? Many books which I've gotten most value from, I will end up reading twice, thrice over a period of a year. Like I'm reading Psychology of Money the second time. I'm reading The Obstacle is the Way, I think, third time right now. So you keep coming back, because most times, as it is with any form of content, if you watch it again and again, you find more value from it. So don't try to overwhelm yourself by finding too many sources. Have a few sources and then let it seep in wider. Have certain people who you feel are giving you the right kind of information, right, or right kind of learning, and see what else they've done. So you'll find somebody who might be an author and a podcaster. So you listen to their podcast regularly, read their books. Somebody might be a YouTuber and you learn a lot from them. And from them being a YouTuber, you will also find this other content they put out as well. So I'd say find sources, but not too many sources, and add that up over time. That's the best way to learn. And the other piece I would also say is that, and which is a bit of a contrary point of view from what I just said, is make sure you have people who have different perspectives in this source pool. Because if you listen to everybody talking about something from only one perspective, you will always get a one-sided view of the world around you. So, I mean, it's simple. Like and I'm taking a political analogy here. If you are left-wing and you only read left-wing stuff and you don't read anything which is right-wing, you will never even try to understand the other side. And same goes to the other side. That's the biggest problem we have, right? And same way, if you're a pro-science person or something else. So I think across the board, make sure your mix of sources are wide enough, and keep revising. It's almost like school. Keep revising stuff, keep writing it down, and your brain remembers if you write stuff down.
Correct. And even I see that when you read that particular thing, you retain more information from that particular blog of particular book you are doing, because first time you understood it, and the second time you're finding a deeper meaning of the words you have read or you have consumed. Maybe it could be a movie, or maybe it could be a book, or it could be a blog, anything. So I generally found this thing in blogs and movies, that when you watch it twice or when you read it twice, you go into deeper meanings, and the things you have seen earlier you just leave those things, and the rest of the things which you have not seen earlier, you find details in those particular parts. So that is what one thing that I've personally experienced myself as
And
well.
also what happens is your context in the world today will be different from when you saw it the first time, right? So sometimes your environment changing also affects what you get from a piece of content.
Exactly. That's totally true. So yeah, that is what. And like, any tips on how to retain that information? Like for me, it was reading again. But any other tips on retaining that information apart from reading again?
Um, I'd say noting stuff down helps. It helps you remember, but honestly, just figure a way to catalog stuff. Your mind will not remember everything. If you read it or write it again and again and again, your mind will remember it. But you don't have to put all the information in your mind. You just need to find different ways to save it and know where you saved it. Like I'm a very disorganized person about storing content. Right? So I'll have like multiple notebooks. I will have 2 to 3 note-taking apps. I will also have random like apps on the iPad which I scribble on, because I'm a scribbler more than a typer, if that's the terminology to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I like to kind of this I'm not organized. It goes very like random on a piece of paper, and sometimes I end up
Correct.
scanning that and using it. So build your own system of saving information. I feel that's important. And your system could be just generally how you can retain. I know a lot of people who, for instance, keep taking photographs of what they scribble out and keep them in folders. There are people who will make very deeply, I would say, connected, documents, which on one connects to the other, and they hyper tag them and they do all of that stuff. So it depends on what works for you, but the simplest way to retain is to keep going back to it, and keep looking at how the source is actually changing the content. So I'll give you an example. I follow someone called Ryan Holiday a lot, right? So Ryan Holiday is someone I got introduced to, I would say 2019-ish. Puts out a lot of content on stoicism, and stoicism actually been a great source for me, especially last 2 years, just to kind of find mental balance and everything else. And I discovered him on a podcast where he came on as a guest. I think he came on Tim Ferriss's podcast, if I remember right. Then I found his YouTube channel. Then I found his books, which I've read all of them. He's written a book a year for the last decade. So, and so I've then gone into his books. I've also get his newsletter, and so everything else, right? So what's happened with me is that as I progressed with him, I've seen that his points of view have also evolved. What he kind of puts out as content changes, and that also in an interesting way. That's the good part about the entire creator space, right? Is that you're not getting one finite piece and then you're done. You're continuing to see perspectives evolve from your favorite creators and writers and sources, and you're evolving with them. So and I think that's really crucial. That's crucial for you to see in the context of the world today how you can retain it, but find ways to store it which doesn't necessarily have to be your brain. I think you just need to kind of catalog it out, so your brain has enough space to think about stuff that's happening at this moment.
Correct. And even I agree that it is kind of like when you follow a person, or when you like consume content from a particular person. So that person becomes like a mentor to you. When even it's not connected, but that person is also evolving, and you are also evolving with the content consumption and all those things. So not specifically the mentor, but it's something kind of like a mentor mentee journey or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please.
No, go on.
Yeah.
I started a train of thought, but I lost my train of thought, which is very normal with me. So I will let you continue.
Sure. So I was reading your article on your story about what would you do for no money. And I was pretty amazed reading that, because I'm doing this stuff almost every day. When I started this podcast, the Pranay Wankhede Show, like 2-3 people asked me like, why did you started this podcast? You'll have to create content on a daily basis, or like weekly basis, and you'll have to do this and that and those things. So I was like, see, I've created this for myself. I've created this for people who I want to educate. And the second thing is, I created this to network and learn from people who are better than me. So these 2 3 things are the mottos of creating this podcast, so that I can educate people and learn from people who are better than me. So that was the thing. So what is your take on what would you do for no money? Can you elaborate on that thing?
So this whole thing started off. I forget the episode, but so Tanmay came on my podcast, which is Advertising is Dead, sometime last year, and he and I
Okay.
had this really long conversation. And Tanmay and I have known each other for a long time because I've known him since he was in college and I was in college. So we like
Okay.
so it's been a long time that we've known each other. So one of the points he kind of brought up, and I thought it was interesting, was the fact that to be a content creator today, in many ways you'll be able to consistently do it in the long term if you really love creating the content and you're doing it for the pure love of it. And that's what your sustainable, like your foundational content creation journey is, and which for me is, and at that moment I said it was podcasting. Today I would say it's podcasting and writing, because the process of writing the book has made me really love being able to write. So this whole point of doing it without money is because not everything has to be monetized. The value you get from it could just be that you're getting personal satisfaction from doing it. It could be the fact that you are getting almost like indirect ways to kind of push yourself up. So for instance, if you have a career and you're doing this, whatever you do as your side hustle, as people call it, and I worry about the term side hustle sometimes, because it means that you have to make money out of it, right? But what you
Exactly.
do, it, like having a podcast makes you a better conversationalist, which means no matter what job you do, you'll be able to have a conversation in many ways better than a regular person, because you do this for fun. Like you like to have conversations for
Exactly.
fun. So there's so many ripples there. So if you look at everything and say, okay, I don't have to monetize it. It's my passion, but it doesn't necessarily have to be monetized. You're doing it for the love of it, which is why I always say that, would you do this for no money? If you would do this for no money, then you will create quality content and you would create, a quality narrative for yourself in the long term. And the offshoot is that you will find ways to monetize it, but you will never take it from the purity of why you love creating in the first place. Because if you get into saying, I want to make money out of this, then you're creating a business. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the way you make it will be very different, because you look at each piece from okay, this is going to work this way, and that's why I'll get, let's say, AdSense money or a brand come in. Whereas
Correct.
creating something, I think this is fun to create, let's make it. I find more energy in that.
True, actually, like I've seen a lot of people, and they have this myth that, as you said, side hustles. So I've seen a lot of people talk about side hustles, and they say that you can make money out of side hustles. But for me, side hustle as well, side hustle is just like doing what you love. Like
Yeah.
I love writing, so I do writing on that stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
good at making videos at all. I tried making YouTube videos twice, but it gets like I'm not able to shoot it. I'm working
Yeah.
on it. But yeah, I'm good at writing, so I keep on writing those stuff. Now reels come up, so like 2 3 people ask me, why don't you go on for the reels? Okay, I'm not into reels. I don't want to create a business or anything out of it. I'll just keep on writing stuff, and I'll
Yeah.
keep on educating people through my writings and all those things. Even I've seen people who are starting YouTube channels, so what they have in mind is that I just need subscribers. I need subscribers, I need likes, and that will give me
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
But that eventually goes down, because what happens is that they will eventually fail in that respect, because they
Yeah.
won't be able to create content, and maybe they'll run out of ideas or something like that will happen in that space. So I think, yeah, like content creation or the thing is something which should come from heart, which should be
Yeah.
an insight thing.
And also the problem is that, like you just said, right, there are newer ways to create content keep coming up. Yeah, I've questioned making reels many times, although I do make them now a little more often than I used to. I have questioned myself trying to create more video content, because primarily I love the audio medium. I love the freedom it gives me, because I come from a video production background. So this is totally like freedom for me, right? I'm not worried about lighting. I'm
Correct.
not worried about like any of those things. So, uh, but I feel it's important to say you don't have to be everywhere, but you need to
Yes.
understand where all you need to be. And I think that's important. It doesn't mean that you only find one option and just do that. Like if you have a podcast, you're just doing a podcast and you're done. You have to find ways to kind of popularize it, push it out, market it, but do it with what you're comfortable with and what your time allows. Not all of us have all the time to do this. Not all of us have teams to work on it. So And even then it takes a lot of bandwidth from you individually. So find your own method and your own mix of things. And this whole thing about saying, okay, I need 1 million subscribers or I need 1,000 followers or thousands of followers in that sense. It's a race, right? And you will end up
Correct.
not being yourself. I mean, if you look at some of the most popular YouTubers in the world, right? Look at someone like an Emma Chamberlain, who's obviously one of the largest creators. She had to kind of pause because she went into a system where she was creating a lot of content. She had an editor, she had an entire team. Obviously, she's made a lot of money by being a YouTuber. She didn't post, I think, for a month or at least 3 weeks. And
Okay.
when she came back, she realized what she really missed doing was the editing. She used to love editing her own videos. And because as she scaled and was doing more and more, she couldn't edit her videos anymore. So she's gone back to editing her own videos. She's gone back to shooting them, not with high-end cameras, but with like random cameras. So sometimes there are reasons why you like making a certain piece of content. It's not even the medium, it's the way you do it. You need to
Correct.
go back to that some more often, because you will then realize why you started doing this in the first place. If you forget that and everything else from, okay, maybe I get a brand on, let me try and make this more clickbait, let me make a thumbnail more in your face, all those things which we read about
Correct.
and see, the essence of why you're creating goes away, and then you'll just become like everybody else and you will lose out your own originality and what is unique to you.
Correct, correct. And even I've seen this originality or the content, like what we can say, the secret sauce of the content
Mm, mm,
creation,
mm,
and the what we can say, the, the purpose of all those things
mm,
in Tanmay's video. I
yeah,
regularly watch Tanmay's vlogs and his videos, and I see that the content he creates is so natural. He's
yeah.
not like he's recording thing. He's just doing naturally those things and it is
Yeah.
coming up. So that is
And this is
what
how
I
he
love.
normally is. If you meet him in person, this is exactly how you will be.
Yeah, so that is I haven't met him, but I'm sure
Mhm.
he must have been like that. So yeah, exactly, that is the thing, that you have to be natural, you have to be in the original way that you are when you are creating content, and I think that would only uh, be the point where you will success, because obviously you'll have to create content continuously, but yeah, then in that case you won't run out of ideas or anything that
Yeah.
will happen.
Yeah. And even if you do run out of ideas, which is very common, make that your content. Like I do this thing called taking a pause, right? I do this very often. I do this across my newsletter, my content, because at some time your brain does need a break. It needs like I'm seriously considering taking a break from a few of the mediums that I do right now, at least for a few weeks, of, if not longer. Because I'm like, sometimes you want to sit back and think about what you're making. And the worry about saying, oh, I need to post regularly, I need to make the grid look a certain way, all those things that you see. Like I broke the grid today, like we're recording today, the first time in a long time I broke my grid on Instagram. I said, I don't want to be held ransom to the grid. I will put up content when I feel it's the right time to put it up. It doesn't matter. Right, so sometimes you need to break out of those things, and sometimes walking away and taking even a week or a day or a month really gives you clarity. It gives you clarity, again going back to like why you're doing it, and also it helps you find your own original voice again. And I think that's the most crucial part, because that's the voice that is fun for you to do this, right? Otherwise it's just it becomes a job, and not all jobs are fun.
Yes, true, true, true. And it should obviously it should be like fun kind of a job, because when I write
Yeah.
content, I enjoy it. When I create podcast or I shoot it, or let's say I record it, I enjoy it,
Mm.
because that's what it's coming from inside, that I really want to speak about this
Yeah.
particular topic and educate these fellow students, whoever the audience I have. I want to educate them on this particular topic because I find it interesting, and when you find
Yeah.
something interesting, you try to share that stuff. Yeah, so perfectly like totally agree with you on that. So I've seen you talk about systems are better than goals. So
Mm.
how to create systems that will help you consistently do things that you want to do and to
Mm.
achieve your goals through that system, because goals is something where you'll stop. Like I have a goal of writing a book in next 3 months or next 1 year.
Mm. Mm.
So I'll maybe all, as you know, we all are engineers. We have the ability to do everything last last day. So
Yes, as always, always.
yeah, so we engineers have this very bad habit of doing everything last day. I have my friend who does this thing now as well. Like we are out of engineering for three years, more
Yeah,
than
I
three
still do
years
it. My
now.
my book was, I was supposed to have submitted my final draft, and I think I'm going to be submitting it in a week. And I till early August had only written 15%, 15-20% of the book. I had not, so I literally took 2 weeks off to sit and write. But I agree. Engineer, I think in general, we always going to say, no, it's okay. We have time. We have 3 months can very easily be, I have a month. It doesn't matter. And
Exactly.
and there's a theory behind that, by the way, and I forget the term for it. And it's I don't know. I don't know if I read it. Something James Clear put out or somebody else saying that, if you tell yourself you have a month, if you tell yourself you have a week, our mind will automatically spread it out, thinking you have so much time, right? So it doesn't matter if you have you're systematically tuned to working within a certain timeline, so you will wait for those 2 days in the end anyway. Which is why the system kind of comes in. The systems come in because you're not saying I want to finish all of this by this date. You're saying I need to finish this much today and this much tomorrow. So that's where systems really come in, because if your goal is to finish a book, let's say in 6 months, which is what mine was, which I initially thought I'll do it that way. And suddenly after 3 months, you realize you've not even written more than like 5 chapters, whereas you have to do 40, 50 chapters. And at some point, if you say, no, every day I'm going to sit and write, which is what I did. I would spend at least 45 minutes to an hour every day sitting and writing. Make that a constant practice. There'll be days I wouldn't do it, but I was as consistent as possible. And that's why systems help, because we all have a tendency to um, overestimate and underestimate how much we can get done in any amount of time.
True. Like I truly agree on this particular thing, because I have seen myself where I was kind of working for like 16 or 17 hours a day. And on the other day, I've seen myself working on like 2 to 3 hours a day and getting tired just for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like there's this hidden potential that we have, which we don't know, and that only comes on after like self discovery, what we can say, or what
Yeah.
like self awareness.
Yeah.
And that is what the next question is about. So self discovery is something which is very important for each and every person. And the other day I was watching your reel about self discovery, there where you are
Mm.
talking about how you were in a job, like dead end
Mm.
job, and not had a sustainable vision or all those
Yeah.
things. So could you tell us more about like how you discovered yourself? Like how was your self discovery, or the journey of your self discovery?
So you keep trying things out, right? Just to explain, I that was something I put out, and I put out with a lot of hesitation. I mean, something collabing with a brand to do, and I said, okay, let me put this as a story, and I started to make it. I got a lot of you nervousness and big imposter syndrome to put that out. But so 2005, I hadn't finished my engineering. I finished my 4-year degree in 6 years eventually, which was, I think, by 2006 I finished it. I was working in a call center. I was working for AOL's cancellations department. I was doing the 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. shift every night
Okay.
for 5 days a week. So I was living a vampire's life in many ways. And I just generally didn't have any confidence in myself, did not feel I was going to be able to do anything with my life. But sometimes you get chances in life and you need to do what you can with them. I happened to give the entrance to study mass comm, somehow got through, and I'm till date surprised I got through the exam. And then I kind of, I think sometimes you need to have defining moments. I was leaving Bangalore, moving to Pune to study. And for me, it was literally saying, okay, if you can't start fresh and do what you can with what you've given. And I decided not to look long term. And that's always helped me. I don't look at 5 years down, 2 years down, 1 year down. I'm saying, what am I getting done in the next 3 months? Or what am I getting done this week? Or what am I getting done today? And that helps because you focus on what you have in front of you at present. You're not worrying about the future. You're not stressing out what happened in the past. Um, and that's how I've been able to kind of push myself to do things. It's always been like, okay, let me just try this today. Worst case, it'll be bad. And even like something like podcasting as well. So I mean, I think two ends of discovery. One is as an entrepreneur, and my entrepreneur journey almost happened very weirdly, where both of us, me and Rohit, my co-founder, quit our jobs to start Glitch because music channels were stopping to play music. And we were like, where's all the fun stuff happening? Because we were both, I was creating shows, he was creating promos for Channel V at that point of time. And we just decided to go out and try it. And at that point, it was a more, what's the worst that can happen? Let's see what this is. We didn't set out to start a company. We didn't have a business plan. We did none of those things, right? We said, okay, let's try and find some interesting work. And we somehow survived the first few years. And then over time, it became a business. So we didn't think too much about it. We honestly spent, I think we decided 6 months before our final day at our jobs at Channel V to start the company. We spent 4 to 5 months thinking of the name and 1 month figuring out where we would get work from. So we were definitely not very smart about it, right? But I think that helped us. It helped us because we kind of jumped in, and this is 2009, a year after the recession. Everybody told us it was a mistake. But we were just like, okay, what's the worst that'll happen? Let's try out. Let's see what we can do. We were young enough. We didn't have responsibilities of sending money back home, or we just had to pay for ourselves. And we jumped in with that mindset. Even with the podcast, I've never considered my voice to be a podcasting voice. I wasn't even a podcast listener, very sporadic listener of a few people. Again, just happened. I've learned that over time, if you keep saying no to things that you haven't tried before, you'll never find what you might love doing in life. So like, I said, okay, let me just go try it, because a friend was doing a podcast. I went on as a guest, and one thing led to another, and I ended up getting my own podcast. I was initially worried about how people will perceive my voice, my accent, the fact that I used to be a mumbler through college and school, where people couldn't understand what I was saying in person. I'm like, you can't understand me in person. How are you going to understand what I say on a mic?
Correct.
But I feel that once you jump in, and if you're aware enough about what you can't do well, but you also and I think that leads you to figure out what you can do well. And over time you figure it out. I feel that we give way too much importance to really over analyzing ourselves and our strengths and what our weaknesses are. I think we give ourselves less credit than we need to. And if we just focus on what we need to do at present, and move ahead, it's not easy to do. I'm a person who falls out of this very often, and I keep worrying about, okay, I'm doing this now, how is it going to work out, how is that going to function? But keep pulling yourself back, and let's forget about what's happening tomorrow. Let's focus on what's happening today, what you can do today, what's in your control. And as long as it's fun, as long as you are not too nervous, you get through it. And that's literally been my journey. My journey has been just figuring it out as you go along. And when you make a mistake, own up to it, say this is a mistake you made. Actually make fun of yourself. I'm a person who makes a lot of fun of myself, and that really helps me kind of deal with anything which I'm feeling. So yeah, so I don't know if that's a very bizarrely long-winded and contrived answer to a very simple question, but
actually it's not an object, it's a very subjective question to answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you made it clear. Even I like 2-3 points as you said about the like having a 3 years or 5 years plan, as you said. So I think a lot of interviewers also ask this question of where do you find yourself in 5 years from here or 3 years from here. I mean, I think we should drop these questions from the interviews, because
100%.
the world is
Someone
changing
asked you,
so
what is your
fast.
5-year plan in December 2019? Ask anybody in the world, what is your 5-year plan in December 2019? And like, we don't know what the world is going to, how the world is going to change. It's not all on you. You're a tiny speck in the entire chain of things. So
Correct.
You can't plan that far ahead.
Exactly. So, and even the world is changing so fast. Like maybe tomorrow some different app will come. It will launch. In 3 months, it will be success. And in the next 6 months, it will be a bigger success, $1 billion company, and it will go down. Like I've seen the
Are
craze
you
of
talking about
Clubhouse. Yeah, I've seen the actual craze of Clubhouse. When it was for the iOS users, it was like a quality thing, like literally something which is amazing conversations happening over there. Now I go up there, I see random conversations happening on any different topic when it was released for all the. So there's something like that the world is changing so fast. You cannot predict, or you cannot say that I'll do this thing in 5 years. Maybe you'll find something different.
There is a way. So, and And that doesn't mean you don't plan for it. The way to plan for it, to be honest, is to always say, what do you need to equip yourself with? Like, let's take the example of something like Clubhouse. I'm not even a person, I'm talking about a product, right?
Correct.
What will make Clubhouse continue to grow? I know it's not growing as much as it did early pandemic, but it's not stopping growing. Will be to say, what more would people want? You can't be a one trick pony as a person or as a product, right? You need to have multiple tricks up your sleeve. So
Correct.
if you're a Twitter, you have text, you have voice. If you are a Facebook and Instagram, you have all those options. As individuals, we need to have multiple things we can do. So if today, if your traits are X, Y, and Z, if you go at X, but X is something that kind of dies out in demand tomorrow, you also have Y and Z which you can take on. So me being an entrepreneur helps me say, worst case, I'll be able to get a job in a business role. But best case, I might just get a job being a podcaster, right? So building that your different dimensions to yourself really helps, because and different skill sets that in many way you're seeing are future proof, and that's only a personal gauge, right? You don't know what's future proof, but you just need to bet against your skills and kind of get parallel things in place. And I think that really helps. I mean, it gives you a little more leverage. It's almost like a balanced portfolio of investment on yourself.
True. I think it's something what what I have like experienced, or what, as Albert Einstein said, that compounding, the 8 wonders of the world. So if you keep on doing things, it will somehow one day will reach to a point where it's giving you the highest rewards. And that is how I see a lot of things I do, the content creation or anything that I do, because I've experienced this personally. Like I started back in college in 2018, and so I didn't know how to build a website, or how to start with digital marketing or anything. But as I started my entrepreneurial journey, I started creating products. I started running ads. I started creating websites. I even did some freelance projects for 2-3 clients and created their websites. So eventually you learn things. And even when I gave up on all those things and stopped working for it actually helped me land something good. I also the ebook which I wrote, it's actually the whole experience, or whole things that I learned throughout the journey of 2 to 3 years. I poured those learnings into that particular book and gave it to people, so that they can also learn from those things. So there are so many tools.
And
So many things out there.
That's an important point. You paying it forward and giving it out to people is also a good way for you. And that's something we forget sometimes, is that the more you give people around you and the more you kind of connect with them, that it doesn't have to pay off, but in many ways, in different forms, it does pay off in the long term. It is something that really gives you value.
True. Like it does. It definitely does. If you give more, you get more. That's the cliche line, but yeah, it is true. And the third point that that you said, which resonates me with more, because my mentor also says this thing, that what worse would happen? You'll only fail. What worse would happen?
Yeah.
If you fail, you can start
figuring
again.
out what is worst is a good thing, right? You're not worried about some unimaginable eventuality. If you say what's the worst, you already know what's the worst it can be. So everything else is better.
Yes, exactly. And you know that, okay, kya hoga? You'll fail. Okay, you'll start again. You have life, you have skills. And when I reached to that point where I was giving up on my startup, and where I was like thinking of like I should stop working on it. So I was like, it was okay. It was a hard decision for me, because obviously your startup is just like your girlfriend. Breaking away with breaking up with this.
For sure it is,
So it's not good. So it was hard. But yeah, then I took a pause. I stopped working on anything for a complete month. I was just completely blank thinking about it. And I thought, like, let's give it up. Not a problem. I've learned so many things. I'll pick up something which is I'm like more, what do you say, more passionate about, which I like more, and I'll go ahead with that thing. And that's where I found my pivot point, where I can pivot to something in product management. And I thought that I'm good at creating product and I'm also good at managing people. So yeah, I think this both can align with my career. And let's take some experience out there, and let's start back again in some 3-4 years back again. So that was how I pivoted from a startup guy to a creator, or let's say to a job person.
Because your life is and that's the thing, right? Something that happens to you on one day does not define your entire life. I feel your life is a mixture of many things, and so one failure teaches you a lot. One success also teaches you a lot, but they are not the be all and end all of your life. Your life is a mixture of many things, and
Correct.
as long as you don't, as long as you do enough things over time that you're satisfied by and that balances out, you're fine. But if you focus too much on one thing not working or one thing which is working too much, I think both those parallels are a problem, right? Both those tangents are a problem. But look at things as a whole and saying, um, overall it is feeling better than it would have if you look focused on only one thing, and that's what really matters.
True. And yeah, like it needs to be focused on one thing. And I have this one question on focus, but I'll put it up. It's a very personal question. I'll put it up in the end, which is, I think I have this issue, and you must have faced the same thing. But I'll put it in the end. Before that, I see you create a lot of content, and you are also running business. You are also running 2 podcasts. You, as we spoke, I guess yesterday night only, so you said that you'll have your daughter's class till 12th, you'll have to be there,
Yeah.
and you're spending time with your family. So how do you manage to be that productive, and how do you manage this time? All these things,
I barely
I mean,
manage, is how I put it. So this is how. Okay, so I've always been very bad at managing my own time. I have gotten slightly better in recent times because I've put in a few things in place. Is that there are some things which I know I will not move. Right. My mornings I will not move because there is a certain amount of time I spend with my daughter in her class, or it's just generally in the morning getting her ready for school is something which I do. And then me and my wife, we kind of share the amount of time, amount of classes we sit in on, because she's 4 years old and you can't leave a 4-year-old with her iPad to go through her online school, right? So that's a given. And evenings, I think evenings there is a certain amount of time we all spend together as a family, and I think that's something which is sacrosanct and has to stay. Um, Everything else is in between. I also have the privilege of being someone who's senior in an organization, so I can plan my life a lot better than most people can. But what I try to do is I have different slots, right? Some slots which I book for, like for instance, we are recording this on a Monday, right? There's a slot on a Monday that I've kept for me going as a guest on anybody's podcast. Look, so for me, I know that it's blocked out on my calendar fully. So I use my calendar as not to schedule every day individually, but to almost give certain slots in which I record Advertising is Dead conversations. I record the Varun Duggi Show on Sunday evenings because it takes me an hour to record 2 episodes. So both the whole week's episodes are done within an hour on a Sunday evening, scheduled and done. Right. So I find some things you can kind of make recurring pieces in your day, in your week. And the rest of it, you're flexible enough to know what you should really prioritize and what you can take off your plate. I also get to do a lot because there's some things I've given up on. I don't watch as many shows as I used to, or watch as much streaming television or movies as I used to. But I do it on a weekend, or maybe once or twice a week. But I read a lot more. I think reading a lot more helps me in creating the content as well. So it kind of connects together. So um, find those slots through your day and slots through your week which you can give to something, and kind of figuring those slots with enough breaks in between also shows you how much time you have available to create content. I do a solo podcast because I know that's the only amount of time I can give. The Varun Duggi Show I started off as a weekly conversation podcast. I knew I couldn't do 2 conversation podcasts a week. So at some point shelved the idea of doing it weekly. So this is 1 conversation a month and the rest of them are just solos. So um, find how much time you can give, but don't give all your time to everything, right? So don't give all your time for work, or don't give all your time for find time for yourself, find time for family, and then find time for work. And also, if you want to categorize your creator life separate from your work life, that's perfect. So give them all slots, give them all priorities, and give them blocks. sometimes also remember you have to move stuff around if something is there. But I think it's important to do it that way. If you hold yourself too strong to, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life synergy. So for me, there are slots within my day where I'll have like small half an hour off somewhere during the day, and that half an hour I spend with my daughter. We kind of like do something together, or I'll have some time in the night after everyone sleeps, because I sleep the latest amongst everybody in the house. So I have 1 hour which is just by myself. So I will read. Um, I'll spend time doing something that's almost a wind down activity. So nothing really like high, high energy or high dopamine in that sense. My mornings as well, in many ways, start with no phone for an hour. Hopefully, doesn't happen every day. Some days I succumb for an hour at least after I wake up, and I make sure I work out every morning. So just find those capsules and scatter them through your week. Make sure some are consistent, some are flexible, and over time you'll find your balance, right? And it doesn't have to be right all the time. I think the problem we give for time management is that we have to be super sorted and managed all the time. It's not possible. We're human, we will not be able to do it. So
Exactly.
as long as you balance it out by the end of like a week, you're fine.
Exactly. I think the same, that people who think that time management. So I think they forgets that they are humans. They are not machines, and they cannot do
Yeah.
everything with with that same energy all the day.
Yeah.
So you cannot have your whole day scheduled and you are doing everything at the same energy all the time, and
Yeah.
not like not missing out anything or not going over the time or anything like that. So we are humans and
And
we
also
have
save
to.
up for a rainy day. Yeah? Save up for a rainy day is very important. Like your example. So advertising is a good example, right? It's
Correct.
a weekly conversation podcast. I might not get all the guest basis my schedule. So at most times I have recorded enough episodes for the next 3 weeks to 4 weeks already.
Okay.
So if I can't find a guest this week, I'm still fine. I have a bank. So Varun Duggi Show, the topics I will cover, many of them are all put together in one like scribble pad. So I'll have ideas ready. So whenever an idea comes, I scribble it down or keep it somewhere. So um, if you allocate time to do something, and if your mind doesn't work at that point, you need to have something that will trigger it or something that will help you do it better. So make sure you have those bank for your mind, because your mind doesn't follow time management calendar at any point of time. Your mind thinks what it thinks.
Exactly. It doesn't, and it's really important because as you said, and I'm also like the first thing in the morning I check is my phone if there is a notification, like if there is something important, maybe some important news or something like that, and if there's nothing, I'll just put it up back and I'll just start doing the rest of the stuff. But
Yeah.
just want to know your experience of that, how it is going up with you, with like how does the days goes when you don't use your phone for a complete hour, and how the things follows after that.
So um so it's a ritual I try to do often enough. There are many days, I think at least 1 or 2 days in a week where I don't follow it. But it's just that your body needs to um almost warm up, right? It needs to you need to wake up. So if you in the first thing in the morning you give it all the notifications, give it all the information, then in some ways also I get up early, which helps. I don't think you can do this if you wake up at 10 a.m. So I wake up like between 6:30 and 7. So for me that's and I go to bed by 10:30, 11. So I now follow a slightly more refined routine than I used to before. So the good part is you feel a lot more peaceful. You start off your day feeling a little more relaxed than you would, because the problem is when you pick up your phone and you see all those notifications, your mind is automatically getting triggered by all of those things. Right? But if you start off in the morning, just sometimes a couple of times a week, write in a journal, you just have something to drink in the morning, and just kind of let the day start for you in a slightly more peaceful and calmer fashion, and then start giving it all the doses of notifications and all the work to-do lists you have, etc., and all that stuff, right? That's a far nicer way to start your day. It's just a calming way, because if you let it spike first thing in the morning, you will run out of energy a lot quicker, which is why people drink a lot more caffeine, right? Because like I've now toned my caffeine down to like twice a day, if not once a day, than what used to be like 3-4 cups a day. And all these are because of how you kind of say get the biggest stuff done first thing in the morning, right after that 1 hour, and then let it slide down, let it wind down through the day as much as you can. let it wind down, because the world always has different plans.
Exactly. And then there's this principle, or what we can say, there's this word called this doing the first biggest task in the morning called eat that frog. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah,
I've put it down in my one of my course for where
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
It's
teaching
super
time
important.
management. Yeah. So, and even some tools are there, like the Eisenhower matrix. I think it's a very famous tool, and a lot of people know about it. So those tools really help you in deciding what should be done, what should be
Yeah,
prioritized, and how to take decisions on those things. And even one thing which helped me personally are the mental models. I think those
hmm.
helped me a lot in deciding things, in planning things, and
Yeah,
in making decisions. So I think those can also help you, like the Pareto principle. It's one of
yeah,
the 80-20 rule. So it's one
yeah.
of the principle that helps you in lot of
But
decision
there is a
making.
disclaimer I should that is there is mental models, right? If you go after too many mental models, you will get overwhelmed by it, and not everything works for you. But it's great to know it, because and make it almost like how do you put it? Mold it to work for you rather than following it outright. And I feel that really works for a lot of these.
Sure, exactly the point, right? You cannot, like, there are so many, there are hundreds to hundreds of mental models, and if you observe closely, you'll find more. Like there are so
Yeah,
many, I think, yet to be discovered, or most
yeah,
of
yeah,
people
for
haven't
sure.
wrote about it. So just for I for my suggestion, I would say that get 2 3 and start using those 2 3 on a daily basis, or on your
Yeah,
like regular decision making processes, and those will definitely help you out with a lot of things that you do,
yeah,
because once you
yeah.
practice them very well, you master them, and once you master them, you all your decisions goes through a process and not just through choices that you make, like
Yeah.
and
Like,
decision
because
making.
everything has been made to be evolved, right? And the thing is, you have 2 3 of them, you might figure a combination of both that works for you, and that becomes a whole new framework somebody can kind of take from your mental model, right? So that's, I agree with you totally.
Yeah, exactly. And I've read about it. People that they're using some 2 3 mental models on a daily basis or something like that.
Yeah.
Coming back to the last question, it's a very personal question that I want to ask you. So, you must have faced this thing that I have a very active mind. So whenever I'm
Mm.
doing some office stuff, which is kind of like very important, which needs my focus, and then in between, when I'm thinking about it or when I'm planning on that thing, I get a thought that, okay, this is something, a good podcast idea. I should start thinking
Mm.
about it, and I just go and start thinking about that idea on a whole basis, and then just goes on loop, that because
Yeah.
it is interesting, like something which interesting comes up when you're doing something, and the other thing just hits up your mind that, okay, this is a very good idea. So for me, how I solve this problem is I just write it down somewhere. Like I have made a group with myself where I write
Mm.
notes on WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is all
Yeah.
the time active. I just open my phone, I just WhatsApp, I put it that in group notes app, and it just gets done, and then I can go back and shift to my work again and start
Mm.
focusing on it again. But I just want to ask you, like, you must have, you being a creator, you, when you are learning so many things, and when you are reading and you are consuming so much of content, I think you must have also faced the same thing in your life where
Yeah. Yeah.
you are getting distracted from
No,
your
I'm
focus
terribly
point.
focused. I for the longest time thought I had ADHD. I'm that bad with it. Then I actually went to a therapist, and she then diagnosed me with something else which wasn't ADHD. So and that also helped me understand. I think sometimes you need to, and that's where it would help me, is I tried to figure out how my mind works. Um, and my mind has autonomy. So I like to do, if you tell me, okay, Varun, walk from here till the door, I will walk from here to the door my way, right? If you tell me to follow the steps, my mind will just react and like revolt against it. That's what autonomy is, right? And that also helped me then say, if I want to focus on something, if someone tells me you have to focus on it and do it exactly this way, my mind almost revolts, like a rebellion inside my mind in that sense. So um, I have found that reducing distractions, as simple as it might sound, is the only way to do it. If you are going to sit down and do some work, switch off your notification, do all of that stuff. If your mind starts thinking something else, what you just said, scribble it down somewhere else and move on with what you're doing. But if your mind is continue to dwell on it, stop what you're doing right now, spend like 10 minutes work on the idea which you just got, put it down. So then you're not dissatisfied. You're not, because the worry we often have is we get an idea, we worried, but by the time you come back to it, will it be as good as it felt at the moment it came to your mind? Right? And that's a worry we all have. So you find focus on one end by taking off distractions that you don't need right now. So build focus modes with enough, no email notifications, no WhatsApp notifications, all that goes off out the window on one end. But if it's your mind that's losing focus, then find ways to kind of, if a random thought comes, kind of put it down and then come back to it. And over time, train your mind. I think you need, our minds are like muscles. You need to train them. I, for instance, realize in certain times in the day, you can focus more on certain kinds of pieces. Like if you have to, like I'm a person who writes really well, either mid-afternoon or early in the morning. I'm very bad at writing at night. Sometimes I'm very good at recording podcasts in the afternoon and late at night. I can never do a podcast in the morning, right? So you will learn that some of these things are right for your mind, and you will find that only by trying them out. And not everybody can focus the same way, but once you can, and once you can find that state of flow, as we call it, it becomes a lot more fun to see what all you can do with it. Like for me, notifications, and I mentioned that because that's where I actually started to find focus, is that I was always a person who would respond to a notification as soon as I got it. And 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, I switched off notifications on emails. I tell people about it now, but it's not like I don't respond to them. I respond to them in a normal person time, right? Like maybe 10 minutes later, maybe half an hour later, maybe an hour later, but it's not like I miss them. And that's helped me kind of stay focused on what I was doing right now. And over time, I took off those for most apps. Like apart from, I think, WhatsApp, I have no notifications for anything which come on my phone. But I go to them when I need to go to them. I still spend a lot of time on the phones. It's not like my screen time is any lesser. On the other end, if you're doing a task and you want to focus on it, find your system of how you can focus on it. Like for instance, I know that if I want to sit and write, I can get very distracted in writing. So I keep noting down the points I want to cover in what I want to write before I sit down to write. So I have all of that here. So at worst case, if I'm distracted also, I'll get something on paper. I'll get something on that page. Whereas if you want to go in and start from scratch and get the idea, then do it, many times your distractions pull you away from it. But there is this, and I learned this from this system that Steven Spielberg uses to write scripts. It's called a clock. And the clock system is that you put down all the sequence of events that will happen in your story as a clock. So starting of the clock is where the movie starts, ending is where it ends, right? And in the clock, you make these quadrants and you say, okay, this is how the movie starts. This is what happened. This happened. So every day you're going from one quadrant to the next quadrant, or you write, so you know what's going to happen, what you have to write. Worst case, it will be the most drab piece of script you can write. But best case, it will actually be something that you followed the guidelines you already put there. So give yourself enough fodder that you will not get distracted because you are trying to think of an idea. Most times when you're trying to think of an idea for what you're doing right now is when you get distracted. If you fed it enough, like it's like if you fed your tummy enough food, you will not think of food. But if you're trying to think about, oh, what do I eat? Then you're going to think about every single kind of food available, right? And you'll end up choosing the wrong thing. So it's almost like that. It's a weird analogy, but that's how I look at it.
I guess it's true. And one thing that you've talked about ideas is that I even get ideas when I was driving. So and you are so helpless at that point that you
driving
cannot
in the loo, taking a shower, going for a walk, washing dishes.
Exactly. You cannot write those ideas, and they just the other day I was doing some stuff and I was not able to write that idea. I was I got a really good idea about doing a post on LinkedIn. Like I thought that I'll share this particular thing on LinkedIn about the journey. That was a good experience that I came across. And it's been 3 days. I'm just figuring out what that was because I forgot. It was a good
Yeah.
thing. I didn't wrote it down somewhere or anything, and I just forgot it. So
Yeah.
these are the basic things that happens. And I guess for the active mind, writing down or script, as you said, scribbling down
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
putting it somewhere in points, or in an organized manner, that would really help, I guess. And even as you rose up this point about autonomy and all these things, I think I resonate so much with that, because I myself as a person, if someone tells me that this is a structured way and you have to go this
Mm.
way, I cannot do that. Like, I cannot
Yeah.
go in a fixed path. I have to find my own path and my own comfortable way where I do this thing. And
Yeah.
I'm also a rebellious. So is it these creators only who are rebellious, or what? Like, I think I find
I
entrepreneurs
think
and
it's,
creators
yeah. It
who
could
are
be, right. I mean, that's interesting point. It could just be that your natural tendency is to find um I don't think it's non-traditional. You want to add your own piece to it, and you don't want to do it exactly how someone else has done it. I think that's more a mindset thing. It could be creative, but I also feel that and I think creative is also a very wide term, right? Innovators are creative in that sense. People who kind of come up with products are creative. So I do think it is. Now that you say it, it kind of makes sense. That could be almost like an innate trait to it. But the good part about autonomy versus let's say having attention deficit is that it doesn't mean you can't pay attention. It's just that you need to want to pay attention. So you need to train your mind to pay attention when it needs to.
correct.
And that only happens over time, and that is something which you have to really work on. And almost like, because your mind is always like a train station. I need to at some point calm it down. Like my mind has been like a train station my entire life, so I always try to find ways to calm it down. The only way I've realized is that I used to do is try and do two things at the same time. So I've always been doing something, which is why this the scribble habit, right? I always keep like scribbling something while someone's talking, so at least I have something else going on. So two things make you focus more is what I used to think. Now I try to just remove everything else apart from what I'm doing out of the equation, and that helps me focus really well. It helps me zone in better. So you have to keep trying different methods to find focus. And the more you do that, you will find your own system. Even if you're doing exactly what everybody else is doing, it will feel to you like you've found your own system.
Correct. And I think discovering your own system is something which is important, because that really helps you. That gives you a joy of like trying out and doing new things.
Yeah.
And that really helps you as a creator. I think that really helps you create more content and work in that particular space. I don't see
Mm.
myself as a creator. I just do stuff that I like. But yeah, I think this is something as entrepreneurs and as creators or the influencers, they're doing in this particular
Yeah.
stuff. So bringing like going back to the last question and coming back to the discussion, uh, any tips you would like to share to the young listeners about learning and productivity, so that, like, for me, one of the biggest sources or one of the biggest thing that I do on daily basis is and want to do is productively learn something.
Mm.
Productively is in the sense not just consume but also retain information in that
Yeah.
space. So any tips or any particular apps, books, or websites you would like to recommend to the students?
Um. So before apps and books, one thing is that productivity doesn't mean you have to be productive all the time, right? To have unproductive days is also something that drives productivity, because your mind needs a break too. If you are overproductive all the time, your mind's going to revolt against you and going to tell you that, boss, I need a break. So I feel that
Burnout.
that's one core thing, right? And I tell a lot of people, and my favorite quote is, and I keep forgetting who said that. I saw this on Twitter where somebody said, I'm 19 and I don't have a startup yet. I'm not successful. And someone said, "Uske baad kya karoge life mein?" Right? If you finish everything by 19, uske baad kya karoge? I think that's important. It's important to say that you don't have to do everything now. You don't have to pack your day all the time. You have as long as your life is, you have the ability to do many things, right? So being productive is to I like the word optimizing over productivity, because I feel that you're optimizing your life. Like, are you moving towards having having the ideal day for yourself? Are you moving towards having the kind of life that you want to lead? And once you have some of those larger vision points and daily process points, you find that your life is optimized. Um, so stoicism actually has been a great way for me to learn, right? Because in many ways you are learning from what is ancient philosophy, from a lot of those pieces in that sense. And that's actually one of the best things to do, is that don't look for only modern ways. In many ways, people have been able to be productive, been able to do a lot of things over a long period of time. And I think that this is a great way to learn from some of the best leaders in the world, what they've done, some of the stories from the past. I think there's so much, there's this thing which says that why you should read books from history is because you can have a conversation with the greatest minds that have lived, right? And you
Correct,
can learn
correct.
so much from them and their systems in that sense. So I would say that anything around stoicism, I mean, you can either go the classical route and start with Meditations, which is the book by Marcus Aurelius, and go from there. Or just look up anything that Ryan Holiday has written. It's a great place to start because he's simplified it for the modern reader, and I think all his books are great to read. Um, if I have to recommend anything beyond that, I'm just trying to think if anybody has had that kind of impact. I read too many things and consume way too much content to kind of figure this. But um, I actually like this one podcast that has helped me a lot. It's called Work Life. Work Life is hosted by Adam Grant, and he's an organizational psychologist, right? And what he calls, so he says this organizational psychology is a very loaded term. What it actually means is that he studies how to make work suck less, right?
Okay.
Or rather make work not suck. So there's a lot to learn there about just finding how creative teams work, how teams work together, how people can actually do something well at their job, how to look at failure, how to look at all those pieces there. And I think that's a great podcast to learn from. It's a great series. He's done a bunch of seasons of that. And who else do I listen to more often? I'm just trying to think of, because I learn a lot more from podcasts, I believe, than I do from shows. But just find people who you find inspiring and see where they're talking, and that's what I end up doing. I watch a lot of content which Scott Galloway puts out, and all his podcasts, all his books, everything else. Again, Scott's a great interesting character, right? For instance, has had successful startups, has two podcasts, also has YouTube channel, and he's on the board of many companies. So find people who inspire you and learn from them. These are the few that come to mind right now. And as soon as you find them, consume everything that they put out and learn from that. I'm trying to look around my bookshelf right now because I have forgotten the names of things. And literally, this mic is on a few books right now. And literally, the books here is I have 2 Ryan Holiday books here, propping things up.
Okay.
Actually, a good recommendation, and not from productivity standpoint, but just really from a life story standpoint. If you haven't read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, please read it, because we've always seen him as his actor in a certain light, but his book has so many great insights on just generally life, that I've literally I've gone back to that book many times ever since I started reading it. So again, a great book to read. And a final one, and I know I'm only giving books here and not anything else to watch, but a final one is actually, there's a show called Defiant Ones. It's on Netflix and you should really watch it. It's the story of Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine and how they both their careers in music, as well as them starting beats and everything else. So much to learn from people's journey. So I watch a lot of docu series like this because I feel like there's always something inspiring in people's journey. So watch that. It's from a creative standpoint, from a business standpoint, and there's so much, and it's also supremely entertaining. So so much to unpack and learn from that as well. So these would be what I would recommend. I know it's not necessarily a refined answer to what was a simple question, but these are what came to mind as you asked me this question.
No. It's amazing. And even as you talked about stoicism, so I've read this book called Great Thinkers. So I was just
Hmm.
trying to look about what is the book, and was just exploring that thing. And I started
Yeah.
reading it out, and I found that there are so many people in history, so many like Aristotle, or
Yeah.
a lot of big people who have done wonders in the world in the past, and they're sharing some perspectives. And there were two, three definitions or two, three things. Like they defined it their own way, and that actually changed my mind, or actually how I think about that particular thing. So
Mm,
so many
mm.
insights are there in those books. And as we talked about, like recommendations from getting from you or consuming content. So I would say, like, if you want to, consume like Varun Duggi, just go on to Varun Duggi's profile.
Yeah, just follow
Look,
me. I share too many
yeah,
things. This is the problem is sharing too many things. You forget what to share when you suddenly ask that question. I'm like, okay, I can think of 50 things right now. Which one of these do I pick? Is where you get stuck.
exactly. And even not just Varun's, but anyone's. Like, if I want to go on to like learn from anything from Varun, or just want to know what Varun's sources of learning. So what I'll do is I'll just go on to Varun's profile, look like what who Varun follows, and then I'll
Yeah.
go and follow those people. So we
Yeah.
have the same sources of content. And I guess
Yeah.
the algorithm works the same way. What kind of content you are liking, it again shows you the same kind of content. So on some weeks, I
Exactly.
see that myself, I'm getting some good informational reels, and some days I'm getting some like
A
comedy
lot of
reels
dance
or meme
reels.
reels. Yes, exactly. So that used to happen, and you need to train like algorithm for yourself. I think
Yeah.
we can do that. We have reached to this era where you can actually train it for yourself. That you just need to understand that how you have to behave on that particular thing, on the
Yeah.
liking that and sharing that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess a lot of good recommendations, and I'll link down all your social media handles and all your blogs and websites into the description. Thank you for being on the Pranay Wankhede show. I hope
Thanks, Pranay.
you
It
really
was fabulous
enjoyed the
chat.
conversation, and I really enjoyed. It was really a good conversation to have. And until next time, guys, see you on the Pranay Wankhede show. Thank you so much.